Season's greetings. Now, this isn't our postcard for the winter holidays. This is our show for Ducks Dash on the Dash Sports Show for the University of Oregon. I'm Izzy LaRue. Here with me is Michael Strite. We're talking about Ducks football on the eve of Halloween, Michael.
Yes, I'm feeling festive. Halloween is here. That one kind of snuck up on me, but there's also the season coming next week. We are finally getting into really previewing this season for Oregon and the Pac-12 schedule coming up. Just one more week for that as well.
Yeah, so let's just get into it. Michael, there was a COVID scare amongst the team with about five false positive tests about a week or so ago. Do you think that there could be more of this same happening throughout the season?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with as much as I can tell about the science of it, there is a faster test that all the sports leagues are using now that was developed as part of the reason, at least part of the explanation for why the Pac 12 and Big Ten came back after being postponed was that they have this test that can get back results really quickly. The downside of that is that there are a lot more false positives. This test isn't a regular COVID test, it's more like a sort of red flag. It'll say like, oh, this person is suspicious, or give this person a real test. And that's what we saw with Oregon. What I find weird is that there was five positives in sort of like a wave, as if previously all of them were testing negative, negative every practice, blah blah blah, and then there was five all at once in a group that supposedly tested positive, which kind of makes sense with what you think with an outbreak. You think that there are like a group that gave it all to each other, and it's like, oh boy, you've got a problem on your hands. That's what we all feared, and those are all false positives. The team is back to practicing and playing and grinding and getting ready for the season. So that part of it is confusing to me. To answer your question, and I'll let you talk about it, Izzy, definitely there's going to be more of this. There's going to be more false positives. There's going to be more actual positives this season, especially with COVID just not going away. It's just as prevalent now.
Yeah, you see with Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson quarterback, Heisman hopeful, probably going to be the number one pick in the NFL draft this year. He's contracted the virus too, and you see it even in the NFL with Cam Newton getting the virus, and you see it every week. You see it on teams' injury reports, except they're on the COVID list. So the injury report saying that maybe a lineman here or someone on the practice squad either has a positive or false positive, like Nick Saban had, the Alabama head coach. So you see it throughout every single level of football in college and in the NFL, because when you're not in a bubble environment like the NBA did, how they had in Orlando, where they took out every single one of the variables that can cause people contracting the virus, and just made it so, okay, you're going to be in the bubble. You guys are just going to play basketball. No one's going to come in. No one's going to go out. And the NFL and college football, it's not really viable to do that just because of the size of the rosters and the teams, and you don't really have a space to do that unless you want to take like a whole city and just put it under quarantine in a kind of bubble, like, which I doubt that anyone would do, and that's why we're where we're at right now. And you're going to see a lot more COVID scares, not only in the NFL, but also in college teams too, as the season progresses, because now you have Big Ten playing games. Now Pac-12 is coming back next week. They're going to start playing games. So I'm not going to be surprised if I see more positives, even if they're false positives, on the Oregon Ducks team.
Yeah, you really to know about how this Pac-12 season is going to go. You really just got to look at what we've already got from the college football landscape. We have Trevor Lawrence. I would say probably not playing this week. I mean, I don't know if his has been confirmed to be a real positive yet, but from what
Yeah, it
I'm
is.
seeing, it's just he's out. He's not going to be playing for this week, maybe even next week, depending on how the tests come back. And you see, I forget what his name is, the quarterback at Wisconsin, who had a fantastic first game, tore up the field, boom, he's out. Wisconsin's backup and third string quarterback are also out, I think. I mean, their week has been canceled. Their game against Nebraska is canceled. Nebraska, they're annoyed because they just want to play football. They're frantically scheduling somebody else to play, and then the Big Ten denied that and said you can't play a non-conference opponent this week either. So they're sitting at home, even though they're getting all good tests.
Yeah, I have a problem with Nebraska because it seems like ever since the beginning of this, when the Big Ten announced, "Oh, we're not having a season," Nebraska was like, "Oh, well, we're gonna have a season. We're gonna try to go out and play whoever wants to play us." You're Nebraska. You're not like Ohio State.
Yeah.
You're not one of these big name schools where people actually want to play you. You're just another team in the conference. Like, just sit down. Come on, Nebraska.
Nebraska's trying so hard to play games. They were trying so hard, and it's still not happening for them now because other teams are screwing it up for them. What was I going to say? The Nick Saban part fascinated me. I mean, Nick Saban and the athletic director both test positive. Nick Saban's case ends up being a false positive, but they needed to prove that it was a false positive so that he could be on the field to coach. And in the process of rushing and hurrying to prove that he's actually negative, they took a COVID test from him, put it on his private jet, or like the private jet that the athletic department has for the team, flew it from one city in Alabama, from where they are in Alabama, Tuscaloosa, to Birmingham so that they could get the test result back faster, so that some place in Birmingham could get the result back quickly and say, no, he's good, get him out on the field. They took a test and flew it on a private jet because Nick Saban needed to be on the sideline. I mean, stories like this, shenanigans like this, that's just, there's more to come. I mean, and you hope for the minimum impact on the season itself and the games actually being played. But the reality is that whether it's Oregon or whether it's another Pac-12 school, you're going to have some positive tests. You're going to have some unfortunate situations where large chunks of a team don't get to play, and you're going to have a much more chaotic season. I mean, I'd be shocked if the season or the Pac-12 just went on as scheduled and there was no like COVID issues to come up.
Yeah, you're definitely going to get COVID cases just because of where the athletes are at. I mean, they're at the universities, they're interacting not only with themselves, but they're interacting either with other athletes or their friends or maybe something like that, or they'll get like a DoorDash delivery. So or maybe live somewhere or trying to go to the grocery store. So you never truly know where you can contract the virus. And especially now that they're in their schools now, and then now they're going to be traveling across states. These Pac-12 teams, you're definitely going to be seeing a lot of positive cases, and it's just up to the players to see like how much they're going to really take these COVID restrictions seriously, because if they're actually social distancing, wearing masks wherever they go, and trying to limit their interactions with people, then you won't see a lot of these cases that you've seen in the NFL and with other college teams.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about it is the hope is, individual players, like you said, for being out on campus, being out, in the world, are going to get diagnosed and, they're going to catch COVID. But what these teams should be trying to do as best they can is to prevent a situation where one COVID positive player spreads it to a large chunk of your team. That if you have that one player, you can immediately catch it and pull them out and have them sit out, and the rest of the team is okay. What the nightmare scenario is to have that player come to practice, and then you've got multiple players, and you've just got like a whole section of your roster that gets put into the quarantine section, and you're just playing with 3/4 of your team. So that is the real worry for all college football teams this year.
Yeah, and it seems like Oregon's prepared for that, because you saw when they got those 5 positive tests, they canceled practice that day. No one was at the facilities, anything like that. They didn't come back till they knew that those were false positives, and they were like, okay, we're ready to come back, and everyone's good. But I mean, these teams, these Pac-12 teams, they should be fine. It's not like any of these schools are like LSU, where at one point their whole entire team had COVID-19. I don't know what Ed Orgeron was doing down there in Baton Rouge, but at one point the whole team did have the virus. But Oregon definitely is not going to be like that. These kids and coaches are way smarter than that. And let's move on to our next topic. So, Michael, we've kind of talked about recruiting a little bit, but let's talk about future recruiting, not past recruiting for Oregon. Do you think that Eugene will be a top landing spot for future top recruits in the future?
Yeah, so let's look at just a quick timeline of Oregon as a recruiting power in the West and in the nation and the evolution of that. In Mario Cristobal's first year as the head coach was when he landed Kayvon Thibodeau, the 5-star, the number one. I mean, he was literally, it was between that and like Bama, and the SEC schools. So when you're obviously the number one recruit in the country, you really can go wherever you want to go. And Kayvon Thibodeau chose to come to Oregon, and to the dismay of a lot of those SEC schools and those SEC fans that were saying, "Okay, fine, go to Oregon and don't win any national championships or just don't have any success." Like, bad choice by you. And that was sort of the big watershed moment where you start to understand that this Mario Cristobal coaching staff is a recruiting force. More than anything else that you can say positively about this coaching staff, it's that they recruit, man. They bring in talent. And you've seen that pay off with the freshman class that is playing this year. We've talked about them a lot. Multiple 5-stars, a lot of really great players to be excited about, and a lot of players that you won't even see on the field this year, like your Butterfields, that could be fantastic in the years to come, even if they take a red shirt this year. And then this builds to what we see now. Oregon, for next year, the 2021 recruiting class, number one in the Pac 12. That feels like a given at this point. And number three in the nation. I mean, this is in the mix with your Ohio States, your Bamas, your everybody else. They are getting who they want. They're not competing and losing. When they want somebody out there, they're winning those conversations, they're winning those battles, and they're building something incredible at Oregon. And I think that is a source of a lot of enthusiasm and optimism for Oregon fans, is because you can see that recruiting pipeline.
Yeah, and right now, Oregon, they're already at about 12 to 13 4 stars for that 2021 class and one 5-star recruit. And they still have about a couple months to go until
Yeah.
this recruiting season's over. So they could very well get more 5 stars and more 4-star recruits. And even then, 3-star recruits from that go to Oregon, they always do well because, like you said, Chris Ball, he seems to find the right players to get on his team. And back when he was coaching for Alabama under Nick Saban in 2015, he won the 24/7 recruiting coach of the year. So this is nothing new to Cristobal, all this recruiting stuff. He's been doing it since his days at FIU, got an award for it at Alabama, getting players like Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Derrick Henry. Like, he's used to getting big time players from high school and getting them to go play at his school so that they could win conference championships, national championships, and all of that. And now at Oregon, you're seeing it come to fruition. Now, starting next year, the team's basically going to be all of his own. All of the recruits on that Oregon team are going to be brought in by Cristobal and his staff. So even though they've been doing really good within the past 2 years, it wasn't necessarily his own team, his own recruits that he brought in.
Yeah.
Next year, it's all Cristobal. It's his own team, his own players that he wanted to bring in specifically. So this is going to be really exciting for Oregon fans in years to come to see what kind of players and what kind of talent that they get over the next few years. Because like you said, they're number 3 in the country right now for the 2021 class. I mean, like you said, that's with Alabama, Clemson, the Ohio State, Georgia. These are all big time schools and SEC schools that Oregon's competing with now for all these recruits.
Yeah, there's two. When you look at Mario Cristobal, this is his third year now as the Oregon head coach. There's been two criticisms that he's had to contend with. One is not directly at him, but it's been sort of the play calling and the scheming and the Marcus Arroyo talks that we had last year. That the other is the game management, just in terms of like timeouts and running the clock out and when to challenge stuff and that stuff. Both totally fair criticisms. But at the end of the day, two areas that Mario Cristobal is not just doing well, but doing well with everyone else in the country, like up there as the best of the best, is recruiting and is player development after they've been recruited. That's a great point that you made about the 3 stars. It's not just getting as many stars as you can, because there's a loose connection between that and actual success at the college level. It's the fact that he can go and find these 3 stars and some of these 4 stars, and he can go, him and his staff all together, they can find the good ones. They can find ones with a lot of potential that are being slept on. And they can have these 3 stars that come on campus and blow everyone away, even if there wasn't a lot of hype, as they were coming in. So this is just a player development in terms of talent. And you look at Oregon potentially, building one step at a time to a point where we do talk about Oregon football in the same way that we talk about Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, as consistent powerhouses that are going to have a great team every year, just because it's a pipeline now of just insane dominance. Oregon hasn't earned its place there yet, but it is so easy to see them getting there when you just look at these recruiting rankings.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited to see how this Oregon team does in future years, just because we know when they've done with Marcus Mariota, Justin Herbert, and other quarterbacks alike. But now that you have these recruits, and you're getting all kinds of players. You're getting defensive stars. You can get linemen who are just gonna pancake whoever you throw at them. You have running backs that can run all day, receivers who are playmakers, DBs who will get picks and break up passes. Now you're just gonna look around at this Oregon team soon and see how much of an all-around team that they are, how completely sound they are all around, and you have studs on every single side of the ball in every single position. So definitely, Oregon could be in that conversation with Alabama, Clemson, and the Ohio State very soon. But I definitely don't see it being this year, just because of Oregon's turnover in the secondary, their offensive line having a new starting quarterback. But they'll definitely dominate the Pac-12. I mean, that's going to be no question every single year from here on out. Oregon's going to dominate the Pac-12, but it's going to see how they do against these national teams.
And another point, real quick, is it's like you said, there is 2 months to go on this 2021 recruiting class. So number 3 nationally isn't locked in. It could go up, it could go down. We got a long way to go in this recruiting cycle to see how well this Oregon team actually does compared to the other big time schools. But I think we can both agree that I don't see them losing that number 1 spot in the Pac-12. And that is a testament to Oregon, that at this point, being the best recruiting school in the Pac-12 is like not even a question, not even up for debate.
Yeah, and they've been doing that since 2018, since Chris Paul's taken over. So you see what kind of culture he's brought over ever since he came from Alabama. Michael, let's go to our last topic of the day. What is going to be the best part of the team this year? Now, I'm excited for this because I want to know what you say, because you can go any which way direction. So I'm excited to hear what you say.
Yeah, I haven't thought about this one as much as I should have, because we talk a lot about like, oh, or I guess I'm a little bit more pessimistic. I've been saying, oh, watch out, the offensive line, the defensive backs, these places that we're like, there's going to be some issues here. We haven't talked about what is going to be the strength. For me, I am more excited than anything and fully expecting to carry a heavy load for this team, the defensive line. If anything, just to see the next level of Kayvon Thibodeau. Because Kayvon, if you isolate the last few games of last season, he was breaking out as a just absolute beast, and an all-American. He didn't have that reputation for the whole season, but at the end he was playing like an all-American. He was playing like those Chase Youngs that go top 5 in the draft. He was doing that, and it was a treat to see. And if he continues to push that and just break out and be exactly what his potential is, it's scary. And that doesn't even touch on the Jordan Scotts and all those other monsters on the defensive line that are getting another year of experience under their belt. And I think last year was the year of Oregon's offensive line being number 1 in the country. And this year, more than any other place on this team, the defensive line is going to make its case to be number 1 in the country.
Yeah, and Chris Paul, he just talked about that the other day during a press conference, saying how tough this defensive line is and how the depth that they have to them because they didn't really have a high turnover. Now you're kind of adding to that, and players like Thibodeau and Scott, they're just gonna keep getting better every year with more experience and practice. So that's I'm definitely excited to see what they do in the pass rush and run stopping this year. But I'm gonna go on the flip side of that. And I'm not gonna say offensive line. I'm gonna say the running backs because this group of running backs, they're probably one of the most dangerous running back cores in the Pac-12 because you have C.J. Verdell, Travis Dye, Cyrus Habibi-Likio. We've talked about them so much. Each back brings something different to the table, and something that's great. And now that you've seen that, last year they got a lot more playing time. They kind of got more cohesive group going, and now they're in. This is most likely going to be their last year together because they're all juniors, and I don't really see all of them staying, especially Verdell staying for his senior year. So this is their last year to truly make an impact as a trio, and they're going to do it. Like they're just Michael. I know we talked about this, but come on, guys, get ready for these three guys to have breakout seasons. Teams are really scared. They're really scared to tackle Habibi-Likio. I mean, I
Yeah,
would too. He's a really
yeah,
big guy and he's fast too. So
yeah,
he's coming at you with full speed, and you'll see him at the goal line and third and short situations. So these are places where you have to stop him, but you're not going to stop him just because of how good he is. And you talk about Dye, how shifty he is and how good he is in the pass game. And then with Verdell, he's an every down back guy. But the reason that he's not at Oregon is because of those two other guys I just mentioned. And not only is he an every down back guy, but he's really fast too. Now you see him as soon as he sees a little sliver of daylight, boom, he's gone. He's gone. You're
yeah,
looking at your teams and being like, what happened? This guy's already in the end zone.
yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what these guys do.
That's my favorite thing about all of these running backs is that they genuinely give Mario Cristobal and Joe Moorhead like a dream trio of three different running styles. I see something different, in a positive way in all three of these guys. CJ Verdell, like you said, so fast. And his height kind of plays to his advantage here because he is on the shorter side, where he gets a little bit of a hole. You don't have to do much for him. And if he can get going downhill, he just picks up 10, 15, 20 yards so quickly. And he can, you just look at last year's tape. I mean, he had 70, 80, 60-yard runs all the time. And he literally had a game where he had like 200 rushing yards by himself. And he just has these incredible games that, he's such a freak athlete. Then you look at Travis Dye. Travis Dye, more than anything else, I think, is able to pick up the extra yard for you. He's able to grab 2, 3, 4 extra yards, and he's somebody that is just a little bit tough to tackle. And I don't see him breaking tackles a lot, but it takes 2 or 3 guys to bring him down, and he's always going to lean forward and get those few extra yards for you. And he's a really nice change of pace. Then you have Cyrus Habibi-Likio, who more than anybody else, I think, is sort of the highlight reel of breaking tackles. I think he's the one that has the most shiftiness to him in terms of in open field, if there's a tackler in front of him, the different moves he can use to get around that tackler, and just the full using every part of his body to pick up first downs, get across the goal line. And it was a really interesting point of conversation last year with the revolving door of Oregon running backs, because CJ Verdell ends up with the most rushing yards, but there was parts of a game where it was Habibi-Likio that was coming out there every time and getting the ball every time. There was parts of the game where you didn't see CJ Verdell for a whole quarter, and it was Dye and Habibi-Likio coming back. And to circle this back around to the defensive line conversation, what is most exciting about these positions is not just that they are the best for Oregon, but they also have incredible depth and flexibility. For defensive line, that's a position group where you are subbing guys out a lot. You are giving guys water breaks a lot during the game. And anybody, any assortment, any combination of guys out there on Oregon defensive line is scary and is going to be really physical and really tough to block. And anybody that is carrying the football on the offensive side for Oregon this year is going to be tough to tackle and really tough to game plan against.
Yeah, and you mentioned depth. With the defensive line, they have Mesafuna, who he made a really big impact whenever he was in the game. Now he's going to get a lot more playing time, doing well in practice. And then talk about Sean Dollars. Chris Ball's been talking about him very highly. And I think Moorhead, he's just going to have a fun time with these backs. They have such. This is probably one of the positions other than defensive line, like you mentioned, that have a really good depth to them. So Moorhead, he's going to have a fun time running that RPO offense or whatever else he wants to throw out these Pac-12 defenses, along with whatever quarterback he chooses to play.
Yeah, and that also benefits them in the sense that they are a little bit more injury proof. And when CJ Verdell wasn't an every down back or a fourth quarter running back for Oregon, we heard about a lot of minor injuries, a lot of like little shoulder stings or little muscle tweaks happening. And I don't want to bring up too much about the CJ Verdell is injury prone conversation, but there was a constant story of like, wait, why didn't CJ play? And they'll say like some little injury that happens. But for the running back position, for the defensive line position, you can sustain these little injuries throughout a game. You can deal with, the long haul, the grind of a season, and they're a lot more bulletproof in that sense that even if you have to go to Oregon's third string running back, you're giving the ball to Travis Dye or Cyrus, depending on how you organize it. And that's a running back that a lot of Pac-12 schools would put down as their number one, honestly.
And yeah, you nailed it right on the head right there with that last comment. But we'll finish it up right here. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Make sure to check out our Sports Pac-12 columns. You can find them at sportspac12.com. There'll be Dash Sports Shows columns from most of these hosts that you guys hear from. And thanks for joining us today. Make sure to follow us at Dash Sports TV on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and check out our website at dashsports.tv. And make sure to catch our next episode.
Yep. Happy Halloween.